Today we're going to go over editing in DaVinci Resolve. As we covered in our last few how-to videos, a lot of editors are switching to DaVinci as their all-in-one editing solution, and I'm definitely one of them. This is a good video for beginners, even if you're starting out at editing, but also for people who are coming from other editors such as Premiere, or even web-based software apps. We will cover a lot, but just like DaVinci is your one-stop shop for video, hope this video can be your one-stop shop for editing in DaVinci. Right? Alright, let's jump in. When you open DaVinci, you're going to see this home screen and you want to create a new project. We're just going to name ours DaVinci Editing. Okay, so we're going to start in the Media tab down here. There are really three phases to video editing. First is organizing assets, your footage, your audio files, your graphics, etc. And that's what you do here in the Media tab. The second phase is editing. That's basically telling the story, and it's what these cut and edit tabs are for. Then the third phase is just making everything look and sound great. And these three tabs do that here. Fusion for graphics, color for color grading, and Fairlight for audio. And then there's a delivery tab here where you can export. So left to right, this is the entire process to make a video. But for this video, we're only going to cover the media and editing portion, with a bit on the delivery tab at the end. Up here in the media storage window, you'll see I have some locations. If you don't have any yet, you can right click, add new location. So I'm going to go to this drive where I have some footage and some audio. Also, really quick, I need to thank Nick Fitzhugh at Red Fitz Films for this footage so we can look at something nice as an example while we learn the ropes. You can view files as a list or thumbnails, and you can scrub across each of the thumbnails with your cursor, and that's going to give you a preview of what's inside so you can investigate your footage without having to open all these files. By default, it will play the audio when you scrub, and that can be kind of distracting. So if you want to turn that off, you can hit Shift-S. Essentially, we want to bring all the files we need into the media pool down here, and we'll do that by just selecting all these and dragging them down. It'll ask if you want to change your project frame rate. For now, we're going to say don't change, but we'll go over those project settings in a bit. I'll go into the audio folder and do the same thing. Now, it's important to say your footage should already be in a folder and on a drive where it's going to live permanently before you bring it into DaVinci, because if you change the location of this footage on your hard drives, it'll break the link. I'll show you that here. I'm going to make a folder called Hide and put my footage in there. Now you'll see it's all unlinked and it says Media Offline. If your footage is ever unlinked like this, you can select one or more clips, right click and choose Clip Operations, relink selected clips, and it'll prompt you to find their new location in your hard drive. Next, if you recorded your audio separately from your video, now's the time you want to sync that up. That's the situation with one of my files here. If you listen, this is just the scratch audio from the camera.
Literally just to do that, all the perks that...
But if we go to this file, this is the microphone. We'll select both of these by holding down Control on a PC or Command on a Mac and clicking both. And then right-click, Audio Sync, Auto Sync Audio. And we're going to choose Waveform. That's going to listen to the audio on each of these tracks and use that audio to sync them up. Now when I play the footage, it automatically plays the audio from this other sound file. Once that's done, we'll just have to organize these. I'm going to create a bin called Footage and one called Audio, and organize my footage into these bins. I'm also going to create two more bins, one called Timelines that'll hold all of our edits, and one called Elements for music or graphics or any other ingredients that go into making a video. At this point, we are done with the first section, the organization phase, so we're going to go on to editing. I'm going to skip the Cut tab because you don't really need to know it. It's sort of an editor light, and it's a good way to put together a rough assembly or a string out of all your clips, but honestly, most of the work is done in the Edit tab, and that's where we really want to take a deep dive. Before I give you the tour, you'll see our files are up here, and we're just going to very quickly go into the Timeline folder. I'm going to right-click and create new timeline and call it Draft 1. This will contain our edits. Now, it says Use Project Settings here. I can uncheck that and choose different settings for my timeline, but for now, we're just going to keep it default. You can change those default settings for your whole project by going to File and Project Settings. The last thing I'll do is drag a clip of footage into my timeline down here and drag another clip here so we have something to look at while I'm showing you around. If you're totally new to editing, the gist is you want to go through all your footage here and cut it into your timeline below to tell your story. So here's our media pool with our files. This is our source viewer. It shows us whatever clip we have selected in our media pool, and we can add clips either by double-clicking them or dragging them over. This is the timeline viewer, and it shows us what's in our timeline down here. Our timeline is where the editing will happen. There's a video track here, an audio track here, and this is our playhead. Now up at the top we have some options. In addition to Media Pool, we can choose other windows like Effects. This is where we have all of your video transitions, audio transitions, titles, generators, tons and tons of things. And if you just mouse over these, you get a preview of what they do. like this binocular effect, which is a bit weird. Index, we're not going to cover right now. We'll cover this on a future episode on more advanced tools and techniques. Sound library should prompt you to download a sound library. If you do that, you can search any sound. I'm just going to hit 3 asterisks to show all of them, and this gives you a ton of great sound effects you can easily drag into your video. And then there are keyframes, and we'll cover that more later. Notice this button, it extends and retracts this window. When it's extended, you can select 2 windows at once, which is helpful. For now though, we're just going to leave it like this with Media Pool. On the right, we have other options as well. We have Quick Export, which is just a quick way to export your project without having to go through the Delivery tab. We have an audio mixer. I usually keep this on, and it shows you your audio levels, which you can adjust here. Metadata, if you want to see the metadata of your footage, and Inspector. I'm not going to go over this now, but I keep Inspector open, and it's important, and we'll cover it. So that is it for the tour. I'll delete this for now so we can start with a clean timeline. Let's go through the motions of what you do to edit a film. I'm going to double click on this clip, which is our interview, and move the playhead to the beginning here. I'm doing this because if you have a video with an interview and B-roll, you typically start by editing the interview in and then place the B-roll over it. Also, there are 2 ways to place footage into your timeline. Either using the source viewer here to choose sections or clips of your footage, which you then insert into your timeline, or you can just drag an entire file into your timeline and cut it there. The source viewer is a more traditional professional technique, so I'm going to show you that method first. To place clips into your timeline, first you want to find your in and out points. And you can do that either by moving the playhead forward here, pressing play, stop, or back here, and scrubbing with this jog wheel. You click on it with your mouse, and when you move your mouse to the right or to the left, you're scrubbing the footage forward and backward. I'll bring it here, and we're going to set an in point with this button here. You notice this little white marker moves over. Now I'm going to jog over some more, maybe here. We're not doing real edits here, I'm just showing you the mechanics. And we'll find an out point there. Our in and out points have just selected the portion of this file that we want to insert into our timeline. Now these 3 buttons will place that clip you selected with your in and out points into your timeline. Insert is F9, Overwrite is F10, and Replace is F11. We'll go over those in a bit. They don't really matter right now because we don't have any other clips in our timeline, so I'm just going to click Insert. And now we want to go back again and find another clip. However, this is where we're going to start our journey of keyboard shortcuts. Editing goes so much quicker if you learn those shortcuts and you don't have to use your mouse. So I'm going to find another clip, but I'm going to use shortcuts to do it. And I'm using the default shortcuts here, but if you're coming from different editors such as Premiere, you can customize all these to match what you're already used to. Also, we made a reference sheet of all these shortcuts I'll cover today, so look for that either in the description or the blog depending on where you're watching this video. The first shortcuts are the J, K, and L keys. J is back, K is stop, and L is forward. And you can use spacebar to play and pause. And the more times you hit L or J, the faster it plays. So we'll do that now, and you can see here it shows us just how fast it's playing. I'm going to find an endpoint, and instead of clicking here, I'm going to hit I for in. Now back to JKL to find an out point, and I'm going to hit O for out, now F9 for insert. Now here's the thing, if I use my JK and L keys now, the playhead in the timeline moves. That's because the timeline is automatically selected, and you know that because the timeline viewer is red. We want the source viewer to be selected so that we can go back and find another in and out point, and place another clip. The way we do that is to press Q. Q toggles between the source and timeline viewers. Now I'll use L and K to go forward again, find another I for in point, O for out point, F9 to insert, and Q to get right back to the source viewer. In point, out point, F9, Q. Now I'll finish putting some more clips into the timeline. Alright, and that's what you would do to cut through your footage and find the parts you want. I want to show you the difference between F9, F10, and F11 keys now that we have some footage in here. I'm going to do that first by using my up and down arrows to jump through my cut points and land on this one. Now when I hit F9 to insert, notice that it inserts the clip and ripples everything down the line. I'm going to Control or Command Z to back out of that, and instead hit F10. Now F10 just overwrites that. I'll back out of that again, and let's try F11. Notice what happened there. I'll back out and redo it to show you. It just replaced this clip. So no matter where my out point was set, no matter how long that clip I selected, F11 fits it to the length of the clip we're replacing so it doesn't disturb the rest of the edit. Now we'll go over cutting in the timeline, and first you should know how to zoom in and out. You can use this slider. This button fills the timeline space with your clips, and this one zooms in, or you can create a custom zoom. But the keyboard is always faster, so another way to do this is Control or Command plus and minus. and Shift-Z fills the timeline window. You can also hold Shift and use the mouse wheel to change the width of your tracks. To trim in the timeline, we'll be using these buttons right here. Right now we're in the selection mode. That lets us select one or more of our clips and move them around. Notice the cursor changes if I'm on the left, the center, or the right of a cut point. If I grab it, I'm going to pull it this way if the cursor's here. It'll slide the cut point around here, or drag the right side if it's over here. Another mode is the trim edit mode. You can get to that by hitting T. Now, if I do the same thing in this mode, it doesn't create dead space, but ripples everything as it cuts, although this still behaves the same. You'll notice if we hover over here, you're going to see this cursor. This will move the footage within your clip space, changing the in and out points. And you can see previews of those in and out points in your timeline viewer. If we mouse down a little bit, this will move your clip in your timeline. Next is our blade edit tool, which is keyboard shortcut B. If we select that, we create a new cut point. And notice it's a dashed line, which looks different than the cut point next to it, because this is a cut between two separate areas of footage. And this dashed line tells you that the footage is continuous through that cut point. And when that's the case, you can right click and delete through edit. And the last thing is our dynamic edit mode, or W. This is interesting. As soon as I click that, notice the playhead turns yellow and snaps to a cut point. In this mode, we use our J, K, and L keys to edit. What if I only want to edit one side or the other? Well, you hit U, and it's going to toggle through left, center, and right. So let's just do left, and it behaves the same way as using our mouse. And if I want to edit the video and audio separately, Alt or Option U toggles between those tracks. Now, on top of that, we can also hit T to add our trim mode. And now it ripples. So dynamic trim mode just lets us trim with our keyboard instead of with our mouse. And to be precise with your edits, while you're using your J, K, and L keys, if you hold K and press J or L, the playhead goes forward and backward one frame at a time. That lets me be very precise about finding the exact frame I want. I'm going to back out of those edits. So I'll say that dynamic trim mode has one other interesting thing. After I trim my footage, maybe I want to preview that new cut. Well, in this mode only, when I hit spacebar, it'll back up a bit and play through the cut, which is kind of fantastic. You can see this preview in regular editing mode by pressing /. I'll hit W to get out of dynamic trim mode, and I'll hit A to get out of trim mode, and back to my selector mode. Now, we still haven't covered what I think are the most powerful keyboard shortcuts for editing in the timeline. So let's go over those. Let's say I want to edit out the first portion of a clip. I'm going to use K and L to come forward to the point where I want to make that cut. And if I press Shift left bracket, it'll cut everything to the left. I'll undo that, and if I hit Shift right bracket, it cuts everything to the right. But if I hit Control or Command Shift left bracket, it ripples that cut. I'll get out of that. Same with the right side. And Control or Command B will add a new cut here. Let's say I want to just remove this whole clip. I can hit Shift V to select it, and backspace deletes it, but it leaves a space. So I'll undo that. Instead, Shift V and Shift backspace, which ripples the delete. And I can hit / to preview it. As far as I'm concerned, these tools are the easiest way to cut a film. Learning these keystrokes is like learning notes, but ultimately you want to be able to string them together and play a song. Let me show you what that looks like by cutting an early temp recording of this video on DaVinci Editing. Good if you're new to editing altogether. Maybe you're jumping from an online, maybe like a web-based editor, which maybe you're jumping to a dedicated software from like online, new to editing altogether. Maybe you're jumping maybe like a editing altogether. Maybe you're jumping to a dedicated software from like a web-based editor. Let's say I've trimmed a little too much off this clip. A quick way to fix that is to use the dynamic trim mode and trim mode. Choose the side you want to trim and add it one frame at a time. Also be good if you're new to editing altogether. Maybe you're jumping. Now let's say we've finished editing our interview and we want to start to place B-roll. Let me show you how to do that. We're going to go to this clip to start, and I'm just going to find in and out points quickly by scrubbing with my mouse. And let's say we want to place it over here. Generally, it's a lot easier if you can keep your B-roll above your interview footage, at least while you're initially editing. So how to do that? One keystroke I didn't cover yet was F12, because there's no button for it over here, and F12 inserts footage over existing footage, which is great, except now we have this audio clip, and in this edit, at least, there's no B-roll audio, so this clip is just dead space cluttering our timeline. So I'm going to back out of that, and first go here and choose Insert Video Only. Now F12 again, and our B-roll is placed in cleanly with no audio. Another way to decide which track your source viewer clips will land on is to move this marker. Once that's on track 2, no matter what keys I hit, the video will be placed on that track. I'll go back to our source viewer, find another spot, let's say here, and an out, F12. Great, now we have our timeline selected. So let's go to here and add some more B-roll. I, O, F12. I'll do that a few more times to finish putting B-roll over this edit. If your project is huge, sometimes it's a pain to select each individual clip. So in that case, you can choose Source Tape Viewer here. And what that does is it shows you all of your files in one place. So you can just go through, find your in and out points over and over again to find the best B-roll across all of your clips. Now, if you've already placed your B-roll over your interview footage and you want to use the keyboard to edit, that gets tricky, and there are only a couple of options here. Let's say I just want to remove this part of my interview right here. I mean, the mouse will do it, but the keyboard shortcuts affect every track. We can unselect this track, and that way any edits I make will only be made to these tracks. However, if I use Control or Command Shift bracket now, you'll notice it does trim the B-roll. Let me come out and show you from here. It does preserve the B-roll's endpoint with the rest of the footage, but it cuts the duration on this side. So it really kind of depends on if that's okay in your edit. And if I wanted to do it this way, Command or Control Shift bracket, it's going to create a new cut point in my footage, and that's not doable. Another option is you can lock the track. I do this a lot with music tracks. Once you put down music, when you're making your edits and changing the length of your film, if you lock that music, you won't accidentally cut that track up as you edit. So I can lock the B-roll, but look what happens here. If I do an edit, my B-roll and interview clips lose their sync. So the way I edit is honestly, typically just to use my mouse. If I have a lot of edits, I may just move my B-roll out of the way, make those edits, and bring it back. But if you use your mouse, pressing Y selects your current track, and pressing Alt or Option Y selects all the tracks forward of your playhead. And that lets you just grab what you have and move it back. And Command or Control Y selects everything ahead of it. And Command and Control plus Alt or Option Y selects all the tracks ahead of your playhead. It's especially important to be able to select everything forward of the playhead because a lot of times you'll just need to make some space to work on a section, then bring everything back together. You can also just select it all with your mouse, but again, keyboard is quicker. Especially if you're zoomed in working on something. Alt or Option Y lets you make room without having to zoom out, select them all, and zoom back in. So that's it for cutting in the timeline. There are a few other little shortcuts related to timelines. We'll cover some of those now. As I said before, arrow keys up and down go to different cut points. Arrow keys left and right move the playhead one frame, and shift arrow moves it 1 second in either direction. And to move a clip you've selected, comma and period keys move it 1 frame. And holding shift moves it 5 frames. And Control or Command arrow keys let you select different clips. Now let's go over a few more of these buttons. One is the snapping tool. Notice when you move your cursor around, it snaps to all of the cut points. Well, if you click this button, nothing will snap. There are some times you want to use this, such as when you're trying to do something very close to a transition point and you don't want it to snap. You can turn that off and be more precise. But you'll have to be careful though, because the keyboard shortcut for the snapping tool is N, and I'll accidentally hit that while I'm editing, and then all of a sudden I'm wondering why my cursor isn't snapping. It can take you by surprise. Next to it is our linked selection tool. Notice if I click on the video, the audio is also selected. And you see this little icon, this means they're linked. But if I turn this off, they're still linked, but I can select them separately now. Say I want to edit this audio over here and add a transition that isn't going to be in the video. I can do it this way. Or without selecting this link selection, I can right-click on this clip and just unlink it, and you'll notice the link icon goes away. Next, once I'm done bringing new footage into my film, I'll often hit this button, so I only see one viewer instead of two. You can still hit Q to switch between the source and timeline views. It just gives you a little more real estate for playback. And if you want an even better view, you can hit Control or Command F to watch your cut full screen. And Escape or Control Command F gets you back out of it. Okay, so that is everything on cutting. The next phase of editing is going to be just, making things prettier. You can right-click on a cut point and add a dissolve, or Control or Command T. You can change the length here, or double-click it and change the length up here. And you can select it and backspace to get rid of it. You can also drag transitions in from the effects panel, like we talked about before. Now let's cover the inspector. When you select a clip, the inspector is going to show you all the options for adjusting it. You can do anything you want to it. You can zoom in and out, you can change the position, change the rotation, add cropping, change the speed, stabilize it if it's shaky. There's a lot in here. And then you can go to the audio tab and do the same. You can change the volume, the panner. You have an equalizer and a lot of other tools here too. By the way, you can also change the volume down here in the timeline by dragging this line. And if you have a transition like I added here, this transition tab in the inspector will let you fine-tune that. What if you want to change a parameter over time, like a slow zoom in? For that, you'll use keyframes. So let's take a few minutes to introduce you to those. To add a keyframe, first I select the clip I want to edit and place my playhead where I want it. And you can see keyframes in the inspector. They're this column of diamonds over here. Clicking on one next to the zoom effect adds a keyframe at my playhead for that parameter. Now I'm going to move my playhead here, and I'm going to add another keyframe. I can either do that by clicking here again, or just changing the parameter and it'll create one automatically. One way to see what's happening is to click here to show the keyframe tray. I'll adjust these so you can see it a little bit better. Now we can select them, drag them around, delete them, whatever we want to do. So these keyframes are telling my footage to slowly zoom in from my initial to final values across this span. And we can also see our keyframes up here in the keyframe window that I showed you earlier. And we can get a better view within that window by Control or Command plus or minus to zoom in. For just one more example, let's go to the effects window and drag some text into our timeline. And say we want this title to move in from below. I'll add a position keyframe to the spot where I want it to land. For this example, make sure you're in the Settings tab, not the Title tab, because there are two separate inspector options for each. But we'll go to the Settings tab, I'll add a position keyframe here, then I'll back up to the beginning of the clip and change the position so it starts off screen. And we can see that happen on playback. Both of these keyframe viewing windows down here and up here let you view in lanes or curves. Lanes are this view that we've already seen, and curves show you the value progression and change in those values. So now we can see our position change on this graph. But it stops kind of abruptly. We'll notice this view comes with a lot of different options that the lane view doesn't have. And I'll drag this window over a little bit so you can see all of them. Now we can choose to ease in and out of our keyframes. If I select the frame, click the Ease In button, the graph of movement smooths out, and I can adjust the smoothness with this handle. That covers the basics of keyframing, and there is a ton of functionality here if you want to learn all of it. Let's move on to some other miscellaneous things. Notice this audio clip is darker than the others, and so is this video clip. That's because I've made changes to those clips. And the little icon here means there are keyframes on this clip. And if I change the speed, you'll see an icon for that too. That makes it easy to survey all your clips and get some insights into what's going on in each. Now, if you have changes that you want to implement across multiple clips, let's say this volume setting here, you'll select it and hit Control or Command C, which is copy. Then select the others and hit Alt or Option V. That brings up this paste menu that lets you choose which parameters you're going to copy over. In this case, I'm just going to paste volume, and you can see it's applied that change. Speaking of volume, there's another great hack here. A lot of times in your timeline, you're going to have a ton of different volumes that are high and low, and you want to even those out. Well, instead of going through and doing it one by one, you can select them all, right-click, Normalize Audio Levels. You can choose any standard you want, though for most of us the difference between them doesn't really matter when you're new especially. And you want to choose independent, not relative. That way each clip will be normalized separately, and that will even them all out. I said I wasn't going to get into color, but I want to show you one quick beginner hack that you'll love and that you don't have to know color to use. I'll go to the color tab and you can see all of your clips over here. Select one and hit this little A to auto color correct. Then select all the other clips you want to apply it to using Control or Command click and press your mouse wheel on the clip you want to apply to them, or right click, Apply Grade. And it's matched that grade across all these clips. Okay, that was a lot, but you made it. We edited a video. I mean, let's pretend this is a real video and I didn't just cut something together. Back in the editing tab, I'll create in and out points like we did in our source viewer. And it's time to go to the delivery tab. Here you have a lot of options that can be intimidating if you're new. These are all your presets, and if you don't know what you need here, H.264 Master is a really good place to start. But there are presets for a ton of popular destinations. You choose your file name here, find a location, These are all the parameters for each of the presets, and if there are any you need to change, you can do that here. Then go down here and hit Add to Render Queue. And on the right here, you'll see your job. You can add as many jobs as you want, and when you're ready, render all, and it'll export that job. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope this video helps you on your DaVinci journey. Make sure to subscribe to see more content like this, including more DaVinci tips coming up really soon. And if you have any questions or criticism, or say you want to call out a trick that you know that I haven't covered, jump into the comments. I would love to hear from you. I mean, it takes a village, right? See you next time.